this is the 4-Hour Kids Pastor, and the idea is, we'll explain it, but the idea is this is what we would do if we had full-time jobs and we're running our children's ministry, basically. So we put our heads together and came up with this whole idea because most people, yourselves, most of you probably are all bi-vocational, have a job, run a ministry, do what God's called you to do while paying the bills and paying off the mortgage. So that's the idea, and I think it'll help.
What we do in kids ministry, I started talking a bit about last night, but what we do in kids ministry, we need to understand the value and the importance of everything we get to do. I don't know about you, but for me, when I came into kids ministry, I was from youth, and when I came in and got involved in kids ministry, I didn't have a clue what it was. I didn't understand the potential of what we could do. And over the years, I've learned so much. But one of the things that I did learn is we're actually here to grow the church. We're here to grow the church, and whether you're full-time paid to work at the church or you're working somewhere else and you're doing this in your spare time, you're still involved in full-time ministry. Our lives are ministry. It's not like just those that are on staff at a church are in ministry and the rest of us aren't. God's called us to ministry. He's called us to live a life that actually does it. I can't think of anything greater that I want to do with my world, whether I was being paid for it or not, is to actually build the local church. That's what I'm passionate about. That's where I got saved. That's where I grew and developed, and that's what I want to spend the rest of my life building is the local church. So today, what we want to do is, if you had 4 hours a week, because in our church there's some bigger campuses, but there's some smaller campuses and extension services that have oversights running them, and maybe the kids, there's only 40 or 20 or even 10 kids. One of our services at the moment has 2 kids in it. That's okay. That's where we're at. And we'll have volunteers running these areas. Even at one of our major campuses, we've got volunteer pastors who are called to ministry, and they know that, and they're called to ministry at a high level, but they're not necessarily on our full-time paid staff yet, but that doesn't differentiate whether they can do it or not. You get what I'm trying to say? If God calls you to something, He calls you to something. So what we want to try and do is equip you. If you had, say, 4 hours a week, if you're like, look, I'm working full-time, but I can give 2 hours here and 2 hours here, and I want to try and build our ministry on 4 hours a week, what do you spend your time doing? Because there's so much to do. And if you're anything like me, you can get stuck in the detail of doing things. So the goal today is that we lift our eyes a bit higher and go, okay, what can I actually do to build this thing without just going around and around in circles? So Dave, we're going to go through 4 hours in hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, hour 4. Now, there is other things in this that you can chuck in there, and not every week will look the same, but this is the goal, is give you a foundation to work from. Yep. So, hour number 1.
Let's just say you can divide this up however your week looks like, and we're just saying, let's just make an ideal picture for you of what you could spend your time doing, what you should focus on, because you can focus on so many things. So the first hour, one of the greatest things that we can all focus on, and that is just team and it's leadership. Just leadership and team, and this is the coffee part. This is the chatting. This is the relationship building. This is the getting to know the people that you're serving with. Also, not just people you're serving with, but hopefully developing the people who are as called as you are to this ministry. You know what I understand? There's a sense of calling. If you're all in the same boat, it's actually quite empowering for a volunteer to see a volunteer leading something. That's actually quite empowering to people. So you're not at a loss. You're not at a disadvantage. You actually have some kind of advantage when you are a volunteer leading volunteers, because everybody is in the same boat, and you're not asking anything more from other people that you wouldn't expect from yourself. So that's the first hour, and kind of wrapped in that. In that whole idea is the idea of key team. Yeah. So Nath is what Nath's going to talk about, key team, for us is the foundation. It's the back to basics of our ministry.
Ephesians 4:12 talks about equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. In order to do this, you've got to have a revelation that we're not called to do it on our own. We're not called to do ministry on our own. As a children's pastor, or a leader, you're not called to just run everything yourself. See, we've got to get revelation that getting other people in on this is actually a good thing. Yeah. You know, it's actually going to bless their lives. Yeah. Having someone that works full-time as well come into the office and help you out, that's a blessing for them. Yeah. But I don't know about you, when I first started, that wasn't my mindset. My mindset was if I asked them to do it, it was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to ask you, can you please come and help me? We've got to shift that mindset where we go, actually, I'm giving this person the opportunity to build into other people. I'm giving them the opportunity to serve. I'm giving them the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And it's a revelation. It's a mindset shift. Once you get it, you'll never do it alone again. Once you get it, you'll never just go through the motions again. You'll be passionate about pulling people along this journey with you because it's blessing their world. So team, leadership, how do we do it? For me, it all starts with key team. Yep. Who are the few people in your children's ministry that are the biggest influencers? Have a think about that. Write that down if you want to. Who are they? And who are the people there that are going to help you get things done? If you imagine it like a bullseye in archery, we can focus on the outside circle, which is everyone in our ministry. We can focus on every single child that comes to our church, which is a good thing to do, but we're going to be running all the time. But if we bring it down, narrow right down the bullseye is the key team. If we put all of our effort into building that key team, if we put our effort into building the people that are in the core of it, then when you try and change a culture, it's not you trying to change a culture with the whole team. You're trying to change a culture with 3 or 4 people. Yeah. Does that make sense? You're trying to develop something within those 3 or 4 people. So then when you go to your services on a weekend, it's not just you trying to develop a culture where you honor the preacher and stand up and give him a round of applause. It's 3 or 4 of you. So it has a bigger impact. You're getting other people to help buy into what you're trying to build, and they're going to help you outwork it. So key team, who is it that runs your services? In Hillsong Church, we have team leaders. So at our Hills campus at the moment, we've got 5 services, and in every service, we have 5 age groups. That's a lot of services and a lot of age groups. City campus has 9 services. Praise God, I'm at the Hills. But we've got our 5 services and our 5 age groups. Each one of those age groups has a team leader for each service. So if you can imagine like this, we've got an age group oversight that oversees, let's just say grade 5 and grade 6, our pre-teen ministry. We've got a age group oversight. They could be on staff, they might not be. It doesn't matter. They're oversighting that key team that outworks voltage in each one, our pre-teen ministry in each one of those services. So, for you, what does it look like? Each service, are you carrying everything yourself? Or have you got team that oversee that service and that team? What does the team leader do? Well, the team leader carries the vision of that service in terms of they carry the things you're wanting to see happen. They carry the atmosphere of the team. They follow up the team. If there's going to be team there or not, it's not necessarily the children's pastor's responsibility to have to ring every single team member and get them to come on the weekend, but that's our team leaders. They're shooting out texts. Hey, so pumped to see you tomorrow. Just let me know if anything changes. You know what I mean? When we've got a leadership vision night or our senior pastor wants to rally everyone, instead of the one oversight having to call everyone and invite them, our team leaders invite their teams. So once again, we're making a big team small, and we're creating a culture where there's levels that people can step up into. I don't know about you, but I want to grow in my leadership. I want to grow in my leadership. The first time I got asked to oversee the skate park at youth, I was like, I'm overseeing the skate park. This is awesome. Skate park is the worst job in the world. I've got to be honest with you. You are basically lifting bulky bits of wood, getting there 4 hours before you start and dumping them somewhere else. But I was pumped because someone believed in me. Who are you going to give a chance to? Who are you going to step up? Who are you going to give an opportunity to lead people? We're all called to lead, and we're all called to make a difference. People want to do that stuff. So who is your key team? Have a think about that. Maybe after this conference, you'll be able to have convos with those key team members. And here's a little tip, little freebie right here. It's easy to give titles. It's hard to take them away. You make someone the team leader or the age group oversight too early, it can be difficult. Now, eventually it's great to have those roles clarified, but you just say, hey, I want to hang out with you. I want you to be part of the key guys that really help us make this happen. And you'll see their heart, whether they're actually really in this thing or if they're trying to do it for the wrong reasons. Does that make sense? So who is the key team? From there, what do you do with the key team? What do you do? Even in the who is the key team, though, maybe there's a few key people that don't have the time or the capacity to be able to be there in a higher time capacity role. That doesn't mean they're not necessarily the person. Sometimes people have a lot of time for the wrong reasons. Some of your best leaders will be the business people who oversee large organizations that can give you 1 or 2 hours on a Sunday, but they're going to get more done in that few hours. They're going to carry culture more in those few hours. They're going to do more in that one little bit of time than that someone could do in a whole week. So think about that. What do we do with the key team? Once we get the key team and we're leading it, what do we do? How do we lead a key team? Well, there's 3 ways that I lead a key team. Number 1 is key team meetings. Key team meetings. What a key team meeting is it's a chance to gather that key team and really invest into them. If we go back to the archery, the archery illustration, the bullseye, you've got to invest your life, pour your life into that key team of people so they can do the same to those leaders at the level out, who then can do the same to those kids. But if we have a key team meeting, it gives us a rallying point to get everyone together, build relationship. Sometimes key team meetings could be just having a coffee together. Yep. Okay? Building relationships, sowing into them, doing life together. We're called to do life. Jesus did life with his team. They did. They just cruised around. They did life together. We're called to do life with our teams. So key team meeting, it needs to happen regularly, a key team meeting. It needs to happen regularly. If we say we'll just meet up a few times a year, there's always going to be someone that can't make it on those times. So set a regular day. Whether it's once a month, whether it's once every 2 weeks. For us, we do once every 2 weeks wherever possible. Some teams, that's not a reality, and that's okay, but we try and really aim for once every 2 weeks. And the time that we do that key team meeting could vary from team to team. I used to run a key team meeting from 6 till 7 in the morning at one stage because I had a heap of business people in my key team who had to get to work. And they couldn't do it if it was a standard nighttime one because of their families. Hey, that's okay. It doesn't have to be at a set time for every single team. Maybe for you guys, it could work of an evening, maybe depending on the culture of your church. For our church, Sundays, we don't have heaps of meetings on a Sunday because we want to focus everyone to church. The one thing that our senior pastors want to build on a weekend is church. But maybe in your culture, hanging out after your service and having lunch together, that could be your key team meeting. Whatever works in your church culture under your senior leadership. Okay, so there's at times I've cancelled key team meetings because our senior pastor's rallying people and I want to build towards what my senior pastor's doing. Okay, second way I lead key teams is through one-on-one meetings. Through one-on-one meetings. Regularly meet with each key team member one-on-one. So this is all in the 1 hour, so it's not every week you meet with the one person. It's probably, if you meet with them all sort of once every 6 months, that's actually, one-on-one. You're still doing great. A meeting might not even be sit down. It could be in a hallway. You stop and talk to them and have that 5-minute chat. That's okay, but you've got to be deliberately sowing into each one of those key team members one-on-one. 3 John 1:2. 3 John 1 verse 2 says, "Dear friends, I pray that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers." The key team is the soul of your ministry.
This is under the title of communication. The communication is your chief role as the leader. There should be nobody who can communicate better about your ministry than you. And there should never be an excuse for somebody not to be informed. And it's your job to get rid of all the excuses, okay? So, I didn't get the email, or I didn't... That's not... You've got to eliminate those as much as possible by just making information available 24/7, no excuse. Even more than email, you need a place, some kind of place online, wherever, that you can get information. So it just gets rid of all those questions, and that, for the weekend, it's the weekend booklets for us. So every key team, every team leader has a weekend booklet, and I've just been working on this for years. We're constantly updating it, renovating it. Is that a word? I don't know. Making it better. It's got but basically everything's in there. Who's preaching where? Who's singing where? What the curriculum is? What we're talking about? Well, here's the announcements. What color of shoes is Bob wearing today? Everything is in this booklet except for Bob and his shoes. As much as possible, you put it in there, so there should be, you just cut out questions. You cut out the need for people to come to you for information. Also, for example, our creative team has a Facebook group online which is closed, and it's just for our own team. And so we put everything there for the creative team up online on Facebook. There's they don't go, oh, where's the new song that I need to learn? It's the same place it's been for the last 25 years. Well, maybe not 25 years, but it's the same place it's always been. It's here. You got to learn this, all right? And so communication is part of this whole key team, and the key team booklets empower that key team to do what they're called to do.
When it comes to key teams continuing, always make it worth their time. always have a purpose. Be planned and purposeful when you come to your key team meetings. Key team meetings for us are typically 1 hour. So it's just a 1 hour meeting. What do we do in a key team meeting? Well, the first 10 minutes from 0 to 10 was normally just be social. It'd be connecting. We've got to connect and do life together. The first 10 minutes would be connecting. From there, from 10 minutes to 15 minutes, so from 10 to 15 in this 1 hour, the timeline there, would be what's coming up. I share what's coming up in Hillsong Kids or in our church. What's coming up on the calendar. It's 3 months away if you know it. So that way when you're talking about it, they've already had warning. The next 15 minutes, from 15 to 30, the next 15 minutes is coach. So connect, coming up, coach. Coach. In this section, I might share something Pastor Brian has spoken about in our staff meeting, or I might talk about a thing that we're actually wanting to take forward, talk about a culture we want to continue to build, coach them in how to do some of the children's ministry things we're wanting to do. This is really, really important that you're purposeful in what you're wanting to build in this moment. The next 5 minutes is cast vision, not fishing. Not casting that way. Right. We don't fish. We cast. We cast vision. Use words like imagine. So you've just coached. You've talked about it. Let's just say, for example, right here, the coaching that we just talked about was some real practical stuff on how to create atmosphere in the service. So the way we'd coach would be, okay, so what we're doing, what we're wanting to do in our weekend services is own our 1 meter space around us. So you coach them in how to do that. How that looks like is making sure you're encouraging kids in that area. You're leading the atmosphere in that area. You're not sitting next to another leader. It's coaching them in what that looks like. Then you cast by saying, imagine. Imagine if we did this. Imagine if we actually owned every space in our Sunday morning program so that when you're on stage speaking, imagine the atmosphere when kids actually get engaged. Imagine kids not being able to disrupt all the time because there's always a leader right next to them. What you're doing by casting that vision is you're actually engaging their heart. People can know something's a good idea, but once you engage their heart, they see it. You've got to engage their mind and their hearts to actually see the outcome of what you want to do. From there, the next 20 minutes is create. Brainstorming. Get them involved. What's a problem you want to solve? What's a goal, whether it's small groups? How do we make small groups better? Have a bit of paper. Get them all, throw out ideas. Remember, you're the leader, so don't just let the one person that's allowed us run the whole meeting. But at the same time, get them all involved. Get them to chuck out thoughts of what you can do to make those small groups the best ever. Because if they're involved, they're buying into the group outcome. So when you try and do it or initiate that new thing, they're involved. The final 5 minutes is conclude. Thank them for being there. Thank them for being at the key team meeting. Thank them for what they do. Make sure you conclude on time. For me, even if the conversation in Create is going off and we know there's more we could get to, I'll say, okay, we're gonna finish up here because it's the hour and we want to honour people's time and that they've got to get to work or get home to their parents. And so that is what we do. Connect, coming up, coach, cast, create, conclude. 1 hour leadership.
Wow. Now, we've been talking about this a lot because it's so important. This is if this is the one thing you focused on for the whole week, this is so important. There's a few things here that we would like to talk about, like the structure. Yep. Our structure is a constantly changing structure, and things are always shifting and moving, but always have a structure somehow. Even if it's on a piece of paper in the back seat of your car, tucked underneath with your sports shoes, have a structure somewhere, right? God wants to take you somewhere, and He's given you something now, no matter how big or small it is. If you don't even have a plan for your current situation, then you just need to get that, because God's got so much more for you. He's entrusting so much more to you. Know what you've got now so then you can grow it. Nathan, I want you to talk about that whole idea about the who.
Before I do that, when it comes to what you've got and knowing stuff, when I was trying to find a beautiful four-wheel drive for my ever-growing family, everywhere I looked, I found four-wheel drives on the road. I was looking for a Prado, which is what I want in Jesus' name one day, but I was looking and everywhere I saw Prados. You know, since I actually got a different car, I haven't seen Prados ever. I don't notice them. What are you looking for? Right. Do you know how many small group leaders you need? Do you know that you need a team leader over here that's energetic and going to do that? What sort of people do you need in your team? Yep. Write it down so that you start looking for it. I don't know about you, but I get chucked curveballs all the time from my leadership. Hey, Nate, this is what I want to see happen. You're like, yes! I don't know how the heck I'm going to do it. One of my lead pastors, one of my campus pastors said to me one day, he goes, Nathan, don't think what, think who. Don't think what? When you get asked to do something new, when you have a challenge or something you want to start, maybe they're starting a new service and you're like, I don't have the leaders. Well, don't think what you have to get done, think who. Because first you just need a who. You need a service oversight. You need a team leader. Maybe maybe your pastor wants you to call families that have missed a certain number of weeks and encourage them back in to the house of God that weekend. That's a what? That's, oh my goodness, there's so much time's going to go into that. No. Who? Who would love to do that? Who is the person in our church? Because they're out there. There's people there. So don't think what, think who, because it saves a lot of stress. It's not all on your shoulders. You've got to ensure everything gets done, not do everything. That's powerful. It's a revelation when you get that in your head and your heart, because we can get so good at doing stuff. But let's think about who can help us achieve this and go forward. Sorry, you got me excited, Dave.
You got there in the end. I love it. All right, so there you go. One full hour a week on leadership. And it might be a little more, it might be a little less, depending on if you've got your key team meetings. Now, key team meetings can happen in the mornings before work. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Or at night or in the evening, wherever your people, whenever the who is available. All right, next hour of the week, we're going to talk about program. So what are you going to do when you get the kids there on the weekend? You want to get to a place, first of all, where you kind of know the basic outline of everything, right? The way that our ministry is structured is we've got the blue shirts, which is our pastoral team. That's all of our leaders wearing blue T-shirts. And you've got the creative team. And they're often, as I've described before, Nathan oversees all of our pastoral with the blue shirts, and I oversee the creative team in the tutus. So it's the idea of this, that they're dressed, our creative team, it's a whole nother discussion, but these are the people that are awesome, up front, praise and worship, up front engaging the kids, music, production, lighting, all that kind of side, the people that are up for it, and we've got dress codes for the weekends, and we do dress ups and a whole bunch of things to engage the kids, but this is the team that kind of makes this happen. Now, if you're not creatively wired or that whole thing kind of freaks you out, then you need to find someone in that position, obviously, right? But if you are, like if you feel like you could maybe, if you want to oversee it, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Have a person overseeing pastoral and creative, or you could oversee them both yourself, or wherever season you're in. But this is, what are you actually going to do with them? You've got to decide what your services look like, and you need to simplify. You need to make them as simple as possible, and you need to make them as effective as possible. You need to cut out stuff that is really not helping. Everything that we do has a purpose. Everything that you do needs to have a purpose. Even if it's just to get kids laughing, that is a good purpose, right? Because when kids are having fun, they're learning. If your kids aren't having fun, you can guarantee they're not learning. And this idea that sometimes we just do something for the sake of it. Well, we're actually doing it for the sake of it, but there's a reason. We want to keep the kids having fun, laughing, engaged with this. We want them to. This is all about branding as well. When you hear the word branding and brands, well, I want you to think of the phrase, what is the emotional response that your kids have when they think about church? If they think about church and they get depressed, then that's not a good emotional response. Your brand is not strong. All right? So when we've created our brand of Hillsong Kids, we want people to think about Hillsong Kids, and we want to have them have certain emotions. Does that make sense? So branding is not a dirty word. Branding is simply a way to describe the emotional response that people have to your ministry. A lot of that comes out of your program, and you've got to create something that is engaging, that is fun. Now, in this hour, you can write your message for the weekend if you're going to be preaching. You can plan an item or something. You can also, this is involved with your team, because your team's going to be involved in this as well. So it crosses over to your leadership side. But this is your time to make sure the weekend is ready to go program-wise, okay? We've got a big curriculum kind of outlines all of that, how we do it in our ministry. We've got one big point we want to get across to the kids every weekend, right? A phrase that gets in their spirit and they will remember for the rest of their lives. That's the goal. So whatever that is, when you're preaching to the kids, you want to communicate that point. So spend an hour on program. You want to say anything about program, Nath?
The program's there to serve you and what you're wanting to achieve. You're not there to serve a program. If you think, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and there's no reason behind it, don't do it. Yeah. Because you're not there just to serve the program, make it awesome. It's there to serve you. Which leads us to our third section, which is pastoral. Pastoral. See, in my mind, program can be so easy to do because you see the outcome really quickly of what you're doing. Whereas pastoral, you don't see the outcome. And no one's going to say to you, hey, I noticed you didn't call those people normally, or I noticed you didn't visit that person, but they will say, hey, I noticed your craft wasn't prepared. So you can do the program stuff more than do the pastoral. But what's going to build the church? Is it going to be the craft, or is it going to be calling the families that haven't been at church? Is it going to be calling the new person that came into church on the weekend? And a call from the children's pastor is going to make them feel so connected in the life of their church. So pastoral looks like things like that. What we do is every week we call families that come to Hillsong Kids for the first time. We call them. We call them and say, hey, I'm the children's pastor. So nice to meet you. So nice to, you enjoyed it on the weekend. How was it? And we get feedback from it. And then we invite them back next week. Because their next step in life, their next step in their walk with God is to find a church where they can attend regularly. And I want that church to be my church because I think my church is the best. As I've said, I think you should think your church is the best too, which is fantastic. But I want to pastorally connect with those people. Pastorally could be kids that are sick, going and praying with them. Man, it's powerful when you go to someone's place, or however you do it, making sure safety and protection is all of those things in your mind. Have policies, be pastoral, connect with kids. Maybe there's kids in your children's ministry that don't connect with anyone. Have all those kids hang out together one afternoon with you. At church, do it at church. Do whatever you can at church because it's a safe place. Have those sorts of things in place. Pastorally connect, spend time focusing on that.
Visiting somebody in hospital is very powerful. If you've ever been in hospital, it actually means a huge amount. And you can't just discount it and go, oh, it's not a big deal. These moments can stick with kids forever, especially kids in hospital. We've visited kids in hospital and just people are overwhelmed and it's full on. And it's sometimes that means so much more than everything you'll ever say to them in a preaching message, right? So that whole idea of pastoral is important, and that encompasses a lot of things. But look, some of the things you do things like, if you could, like visiting kids in their school. You want to let people know that it works. But if you've got a relationship with school, especially if you're doing scripture, SRE in schools, like in New South Wales, we are able to go into schools and teach scripture. Take advantage of all that. That could come under your pastoral, your half an hour a week. You could do a class, and I encourage everybody to do that if you can. Get into schools because it's a really it's a mission field, and there's the kids that we can reach across Hillsong Kids. We're doing about 80 classes a week, something like that. That's across all of our campuses in Sydney. We're reaching as many kids midweek as we are on the weekend. You know what I mean? And these kids that are never going to come to church, and that's our main outreach. We don't do a lot of outreach things. So these kind of ideas are inside this pastoral thing. It could be outreach for you. It could be but it's just getting to know the kids of your service and the kids of your church. The last hour, kind of a double whammy, but this is the crossover one. 2 half hours. It is prayer, and I'm going to call this basically prayer and communication, because these you got to do these all the time. This is constantly outside of all this other time. Like you can really devote a time to pastoral. You can devote a time to program. You can devote a time to key team and leadership. But this prayer and communication go across your whole week, because you've got to communicate. You've got to be ready. You've got to have the answers. You've got to be there so your team feels empowered to do what you're asking them to do. So prayer is obviously, now we can't talk about being a kids pastor without talking about prayer. It's not just a given. It's a thing that we need to actually look at and address and figure out what it looks like for us. I know in key teams, and whenever we gather in key teams, there's always a lot of prayer going on for that, for our kids, for our services. It gets our leaders in the right frame of mind. It gets them in the right heart, because they realize what they're there for. And the reason they're there for is not just to fix their pet problem, but the reason they're there for is to grow the church, right? And this prayer is important, and communication. Like we're going to talk about communication now, and this is vital. This is the secret sauce of children's ministry. You know what I'm saying? There is no reason why your leaders don't have access to the information they need 24/7, 365 days a year. No worry about contacting you to find out something. They need to have it available to them. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing that. So as I mentioned before, this covers your program. This is your key team. This is your the pastoral side of things, especially when we're dealing with pastorally. We've got to let our oversights know in the pastoral care guys. Here's what's going on. Communication is important. It's up and it's down. So Nath, when you talk about communicating to our leaders, big picture and everything like that.
Okay, communicating to your leaders up.
Yep.
Okay, communicating up. What's really important is to know the style that your senior leadership wants to hear information in. For me, I know that the people over me don't want 10 questions in the one email, because it means they can't just answer an email on the fly. They've actually got to contribute a large amount of their time to it, and they don't have a large amount of time, so it won't get done necessarily. They want to know, here's what I'm wanting to do. This is what I think will work best. Is this okay? Yes or no. I may get answers and response really, really easily from that. But also every single week I do a report called our exec report, which I send to my senior leadership, that has all the information, dot points about what's going on in Hillsong Kids around Australia, so that they're informed. They're informed of leadership changes. They're informed of big picture things going on. They're informed of leaders that are doing brilliant, and I'm bragging on our leaders. They're informed of what we're doing to proactively build the church, not just rely on church's growth, but how we're doing it. I want to talk up really, really well in that. Also, when it comes to communicating down to our team as well, there's so many apps and things these days where you can do personalized text messages to your entire team. So you can send a text that goes to everyone on your team saying, "Hi, David," and it actually says their name. Not just "Hi, David" to Steve. It goes their personal name, and what we've found is you get a lot more replies back. Personalized email or personalized text will get a response, whereas a generic one, "Hey team, are you able to come to next Thursday's training?" You'll get like 10% reply back. "Hi Nathan, are you coming next week to training?" I'm replying to that. Because it's personalised to me. And even eventually they'll know that it wasn't personal, but they'll feel like it could have been, so they'll answer anyway. But just don't mess it up. My wife sent an email the other day, and it said, "Hi, first name." And everyone was like, gotcha. It was awesome. She got more replies from that than she does from her normal emails. It was unbelievable. But there's so much out there that can help you communicate effectively to your team. When it comes to things like the 5-minute training or the 3-minute training that Dave did, if you work full-time, do it from your office. How cool is that for them to see you? If you're on a construction site, pull out your phone. "Here we are, guys, on a construction site. This is what we're doing this week." Bam. Because they see you're a real person who's sacrificing much as well, and you're believing for it no matter where you are. How awesome is that? That's actually probably more powerful than this guy doing his 3 minutes. Sorry, Dave, you need to go on a construction site. But
that would be a disaster.
Yeah, we would need more than a hard hat for that one. Yes. But do that kind of stuff because it really communicates volumes to your team. So we've got the first hour was leadership. Second hour was programs. Third hour was pastoral. Fourth hour is prayer and communication. When it comes to programs, highlights are for a purpose. Don't feel like you have to do highlights because every other church does highlights. When I say highlights, I mean big special weekends. If you don't communicate it to your church and you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, don't do it. Because it's going to take time and effort, but it's not going to produce a result. Put highlights on for the sake of growth. What I mean by that is in our church, we believe that we really encourage all of our church to have a Mary Martha service. A Mary service where you literally sit at the feet of Jesus and receive. And a Martha service where you do serve and make church amazing. So it's 2 services on a weekend. So we're trying to bring people to a morning service and a night service. So I've got no problem on a Sunday night having a huge highlight that I promote all morning, trying to get families to come back to that nighttime service. The other week we had in the morning, you voted on what leader you wanted to get slimed that night. And if you came back, you would actually have your name in the draw to be picked out as the kid that got through the sliming. Well, this one kid is at home having dinner that night. It's 5 to 6. And he says to his dad, "Dad, what time is it? What time is it?" "It's 5 to 6, son." "Why?" "What time does church start?" 5:30. "We're not going tonight." He's like, "No, we're going. I have to slime Pastor Nathan." He was so pumped to slime me. So Dad rings me, "Nathan, have they slimed you yet?" No, they haven't slimed me. It's all good. Why? What's going on? He tells me the story. They quickly get dressed and whipped to church for the last 20 minutes of church. Out of about 300 names, guess what name gets drawn? And I promise you, we did not rig it. Nothing dodgy was done. We drew out this name and I'm like, Ben. Oh my goodness. Ben gets up on stage, he slimes me and he has an absolute ball. What that does, it's a highlight for a purpose. It's a highlight to bring growth. It's a highlight to help families who want to attend 2 services actually attend 2 services. I've got no problem with putting things on in the church calendar that's going to make families want to be at church.
Wonderful. The idea here is this whole idea of the 4-hour kids pastor, 4 hours a week, is we want you to do what only you can do. Yeah. You don't need to be doing things that you don't need to be doing. I mean, it's Captain Obvious, but sometimes I find myself, this is my biggest challenge sometimes in leadership. I love learning how to do new things, and sometimes I'll learn it when I should have empowered someone else to do it. Every one of the areas that we've gone through, every one of these 4 hours, there's a whole separate book you could read on it. There's a whole separate sermon you could listen to about it. But this idea that you've got to focus on what only you can do. And the reason we go on about communication and key team is because those are the central things that you should be doing yourself. You running your key team. Now, if you get big enough, I mean, we have key teams within key teams, like Inception, but you got your key team, and then we have, we've got separate people running key teams who we trust. But communication, you've got to be the king or the queen of communication in your ministry. You can delegate a lot of stuff, but man, don't delegate that communication. Don't delegate the passion that you have for the ministry. There should be nobody else who's more passionate about this. Now, I guarantee this, if you get good at this, if you get good at doing everything and delegating, you'll be passionate because you'll see results. You'll be passionate because you'll see things start to happen. And I don't want you to see this as a lot of work. Hopefully, in hearing this, it's less work than you're currently doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? For me, every time we do this, I'm like, I should be doing less and should be doing more of that or this, and it's readjusting my own priorities. And I get more passionate about it because I can see the release that will come in the future in my ministry and in my life.
Keep the main thing the main thing. Very simple, but very powerful. Keep the main thing the main thing. What are you trying to build? What are you trying to build? Keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing is Jesus. One thing we do, this is a freebie as well, it's not part of the 4-Hour Kids Pass, we do salvation moments in every single one of our services across Hillsong Kids in Australia. Why? Because I never want to have one kid who's sitting there, they've finally brought their friend, they've been praying for their friend, they've finally got their friend to come to church, their friend said yes, the whole moment's led to this one thing, and then I preach a great word and then walk off stage without giving them an opportunity to respond to Jesus, because coming to church doesn't get them into heaven, doesn't get them best friends with Jesus, doesn't save them. It's actually calling on the name of Jesus that does. So I want to encourage you, keep the main thing the main thing, and the main thing is leading people to Jesus. Let me pray for you. Father God, I thank you for every single